to our science lesson. And today we'd like to look at light energy, whereby we said light is the form of energy that enables us to see. So we are able to see objects around the earth just because of the presence of the light. So when light is absent in the environment, we will not be able to see objects around us. So that's why we say light is a form of energy. How is it a form of energy? Just because it is capable of doing work. So here we say light is a form of energy that enables us to see. And from there we have something to note it carefully. We see things around us because light from them is reflected into our eyes. We can only see objects around us because the light from the object is actually reflected into our eyes. And it can only be possible when the light from the sun falls into those objects and then it bounces back. As it's bouncing back, it of course falls into our eyes. And then we will be able to see the objects around us. So that's why I say we see things around us because light from them is reflected into our eyes. Then from there we will be able to see objects around us. We want to look at the importance of light in the environment. How is light important? One, we say sunlight energy enables us to see objects around us. We also said sunlight enables plants to make their own food. We all know that sunlight is used as a condition during that process of photosynthesis. So when light happens not to be there, then plants will not be able to make their own food. So light has to be present in order for photosynthesis to take place. It is also used for photography. So light is used during that period of time when people are taking pics. So we call it photography. So light is needed in that process. It enables animals to see objects. All animals, including a lion, a rabbit, any animal around or in the environment. It's actually by the help of the light from the sun that enables animals to see objects around them. Also went ahead and said sunlight is used by our skins to make vitamin D. So the light from the sun, which is of course called sunlight, is used by the skins of the human beings to make vitamin D. And we all know that vitamin D is very important in our bodies. How is it important? It's actually, vitamin D prevents what we call rickets. And rickets, we all know that is a deficiency disease. So light from the sun is being used by the skin to make vitamin D. And this vitamin is very, very important in our bodies. How? It prevents what we call rickets. We use artificial light on the streets to control traffic. We all know that we have places along the roads, or let me say busy roads, whereby we use this light, which is artificial, to control traffic. And we all know that we have what you call the red. We have what you call the red color. We have what you call a yellow. And then we have what you call the orange. So these are, we use the artificial light to show these colors, of course, to the road user, and then the road users will be able to interpret. And then, as of course, they're in the process when they're in the process of movement, they'll be able to see the orange, the red, and then the yellow. Then we have here the NB. Light is a form of energy because it's capable of doing work. So we use actually light to do work. Like in the process of photosynthesis, plants use this light, of course, to carry out photosynthesis. We have here the sources of light. We have natural sources and then artificial sources. These are the two main sources of light. What are natural sources? These are sources of light provided by nature. So no man can, of course, make light from this source. So we say examples of natural sources. We have the sun, we have the stars, erupting volcanoes, fireflies, lightning, and glowworms. These are natural sources. Natural sources are sources of light provided by nature. They include the sun. The sun can, of course, produce its own light, including the stars. We have what called erupting volcanoes. We have, of course, volcanoes which are very active. They still, of course, they can erupt and then they produce that light. Then we have fireflies. These are insects that can, of course, fly in the night. And then as they fly, they produce that light. Then we have lightning and then glowworms. So these are actually examples of natural sources of what? Of light. Very good. So before we look at the artificial sources of light, let's first look at this. We say the sun, the stars, and the erupting volcanoes are very hot. Very hot. These examples of natural sources of light, they are very hot. So we have the sun, the stars, and erupting volcanoes. Then we have others. Of course, we have the fireflies, then the glowworms. These ones are not very hot at all. They are not hot at all. So we have here artificial sources of light. We say these are sources of light which are made by people or made by man. And examples are here. We have the solar lamps. This is made by man. The electric lamps made by man. We have what you call the fluorescent tubes made by man. Electric bulbs. We have hurricane lamps, fire, and candles. All these are made by man. Solar lamps, automatically, of course. With this one, we need solar energy, of course, to enable this lamp produce light. Electric lamps, it needs, of course, what you call a hydro energy to produce the light. Fluorescent tubes, we also have electric bulbs. They also need that hydro energy to produce the light. We have hurricane lamps. They need, of course, what you call energy from petroleum, either diesel, kerosene. So we have fire and candles. Candles, actually, we can burn them to produce light. So these are examples of artificial sources of light. Here we have objects that produce light. The objects that produce light are grouped into two. We have luminous objects and non-luminous objects. So the question comes, what are luminous objects? Luminous objects are objects that produce their own light. Objects that can produce their own light, we call them luminous objects. And here are examples. One, we have the sun. The sun is, of course, capable of producing its own light. We have the stars. We always see in the sky. The stars, of course, they can produce their own light. Then we have erupting volcanoes. Whenever these active volcanoes, of course, erupt, light is produced. Then we have lamps. Of course, the examples of lamps are here. We have solar lamps, electric lamps. We have electric bulbs and many other lamps. Then we have torches. Torches are also capable of producing their own light. And then you have hot charcoal. When you happen to burn charcoal, you see light and you can feel heat. So these are examples of objects that can produce their own light. One, I said the sun, the stars, erupting volcanoes, lamps. We have torches, and we have what we call hot charcoal. Then we have what we call non-luminous objects. Non-luminous objects are objects that reflect light from other sources. When light falls on them, it bounces. So as it bounces, that light is given out. So these objects, non-luminous objects, they can't produce their own light. And examples are here. We have the moon, we have the planets, and the plane mirrors. They only reflect light. How? Light from other sources, for example, the sun, falls on them and then it's actually reflected. In that way, they will give out the light. So these are objects that reflect light from other sources. And examples include, we have the moon, the planets, and the plane mirrors. Those are the examples of non-luminous objects. When you come here, the sun, the stars, and erupting volcanoes, these ones are very hot. As they produce light, or as they give out light, or as they emit light, normally you find they are very hot. And then you also have the hot charcoal. When charcoal burns, of course, you will feel that heat there. So that's that for today. Thank you very much.